Kill the bride!
Welcome to Radical Listening, a Portland podcast where we talk to local artists about their current projects. I'm your host, Phil Johnson.
And I'm your co-host, Clifton Holtznagel.
Yeah, and today we have an awesome episode. We interview the producing artistic director of Coho Productions and our partner in crime, Philip Cuomo. What do you think about today's episode?
Oh, it was really interesting. I'm really excited we got him on the podcast. We'd been wanting to for a while, and it was great to hear his takes on everything, theater and otherwise. He was a teacher of mine at the Institute for Contemporary Performance, so I've heard him talk a lot before, but I learned so much new in this podcast. It was very interesting. He's got a lot of stories. Some of them I had heard before, but most I actually hadn't, so that was a really, really cool thing to see.
Yeah, I felt like it was a fairly candid conversation. Honestly, we cover a lot of topics, but one thing that I found very interesting was this connection that he draws between spirituality and theater. And that's towards the end of the podcast, but stick around for that. Other things we talk about are tiny houses. We talk about clown versus buffoonery and trolling. We talk about his experience in the theater industry, and then we talk about what Radical Listening is all about. So, without further ado, this is our interview with Philip Cuomo. Hey, we're here with Philip Cuomo at Coho Theater, and I think this is a great opportunity. We've been talking about music and to talk about the show that we saw this past week. I don't have. Well, what's the title of it? It's a very long title.
The full title is Beethoven and Chopin, Monster Hunters, Meet the Bride of Frankenstein, a Romance.
It was right on the tip of my tongue.
It's meant to be spoken.
Okay, I was gonna say, is that all summed up on one, pamphlet or card that you can hand out to people, or?
Well, that's the title.
Yeah,
it's working. It'll probably degrade down to Beethoven and Chopin, Meet the Bride of Frankenstein, which gets the point.
Yeah,
that
and
sounds
a little
about right.
bit more succinctly.
Yeah,
it's a working title because we're trying to devise the piece, and so I want to suggest to the company of performers the main action, which is monster hunting, and the tone, which is romantic and sort of the classical romanticism.
Oh yeah.
okay.
We're riffing on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which is British Romanticism literature, and Beethoven's music, which is classical romanticism.
So what came first? Did the music come first, or did the Frankenstein come first?
I wish it was as thoughtful as that. It's much more stupid.
Okay.
In a really good way, like we use in the clown cohort, we use the word stupid as a compliment. Idiot savant is what I've been called in the press before. They can't tell if I'm just so dumb or if I'm so smart that I can do dumb. And it's really silly that I'm after. And it's really a sillier reason than the intellectual marrying of the British Romanticism. Isaac Lamb has participated in the clown cohort before. He actually played Amanda Wingfield in the Philip's Glass Menagerie, and he worked really well with Emily Newton, who is one of the mainstays in the cohort. They worked together first in Holiday Shorts, and then they were beautiful and carried stuff for me. And Isaac last winter was playing over at PCS. He was in their Christmas show, and one of the sketches was Scrooge, and he played Scrooge. And his costume, he said, and he took a photo. Isaac loves to social media it. He's a Facebook guy.
Okay.
And he took a photo of himself in his Scrooge costume. He says, I don't know if I'm Scrooge or Beethoven in this costume. And I was like, Beethoven, I've got an idea. And it came to me when I saw the photo of him and Emily playing Beethoven and Chopin as monster hunters. I was looking for some sort of gothic horror thing that was suggested by one of the members in the cohort, that maybe next project would be a horror. When I saw Beethoven, I was like, great. And then I looked at some gothic horror classic movies from the 30s and 40s. And of course, I stumbled on Abbott and Costello, Meet Frankenstein, and I'm like, perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
Beethoven and Chopin. And Chopin is just a funny word.
Yeah.
You know, it sounds good together. Beethoven and Mozart doesn't. Well, though that has a nice little ring to it too, doesn't it? It's a little more lyrical.
It's true.
But Chopin's a little more deep cut. It's not really, but like a little less popular than Mozart's. You're like, pinky's out.
It's funny that you take something as highbrow as something like Beethoven and say, oh no, that's silly.
Yes.
You know, like that's
the whole. That's the whole deal.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
the more serious we take ourselves, the more ridiculous we are.
Yeah.
That's the whole guiding principle of clown. I mean, if somebody says they're not a clown, they're lying to you. If they have never felt the humility of making a mistake over and over again, they're lying. And that's essentially clown. You make a mistake over and over again, and you don't really learn from it. You just keep going.
Yeah.
And that's fucking life.
Yeah.
So you know, everybody displays clown behavior, and the more they try not to, the more they do it.
Oh well, that's very evident in our world today.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Buffoonery,
Yeah.
which is a little different than clown. The buffoon is grotesque, and in the clown world, the buffoon knows they're grotesque, and it relishes their grotesqueness and points to us and say, you think I'm grotesque? You're the grotesque one.
And the clown is a little bit more innocent.
Yeah, the clown is innocent, doesn't know better.
Yeah.
It doesn't learn from the mistakes. So there's a distinction, and that's the distinction I've made in my theories or pedagogy when I teach to separate the two. I had a student years ago who was so angry about doing the clowning, and I realized eventually that that what was coming out of him in the clowning work that we were doing was buffoon, and he hadn't been. I model clown in class, but I don't model buffoonery. I'm just not a buffoon.
Yeah.
And in this traditional grotesque
Right.
sense. And finally, I was like, it hit me. Everybody had to tell a joke in gibberish, and his joke was, "What do you do with when you find a clown on a swing? You take an axe to him." Right? It's kind of funny, but it's kind of grotesque.
Yeah,
it's just like it's so angry.
Yeah.
Right. In clown class.
In clown class, in gibberish.
Oh, so and then so he takes that joke and then does it in gibberish. Get the idea across.
To get the intention across, right? You can't do a lot of physical stuff. So then nobody could guess. Nobody had any idea what his joke was, and he had to tell it. And it was like, whoa, I gotta look at that,
Yeah.
right? And
That's really interesting because that's the type of humor that I see in kind of the darker spaces of the internet. You know, like the Reddit, some Reddit forums, and like, you know, that 4chan kind of humor where it's just really dark and mean.
mean,
Yeah.
and the buffoon really is mean
Yeah.
because he's pointing out our hypocrisy, or they. Maybe the buffoon should be they.
Sure.
Take a lesson from Jamie.
Yeah.
Well, I would say the buffoon could be anything.
Could be anything. Clown could be too.
Now, here's a question. Are you familiar with what we call online trolling?
Well, I have a little idea.
Because I wonder, is trolling buffoonery? Is that what that is? Is that the
Well,
idea?
you'd have to define trolling for me.
Well,
then.
to me, it seems like trolls kind of create chaos for fun.
kind of bait people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They kind of will say something really awful just to get the reaction.
It's like they're creating humor for themselves, but not
Except
for
the problem
the
is
group.
But sometimes they think they're really smart about it.
they're really they're anonymous.
Yes.
Then
Usually.
no.
But what
then
if
they
they're-
would not be buffoon.
What about them? Would you think their internet persona might be a mask?
Well, even if
could-
it is a
could you argue
mask, yeah, you could right. If they have a clear, defined internet persona, let's call it a mask, and they relish in it, then yeah, I guess it is buffoon. Ooh, we're into sticky
Yeah,
territory.
I know.
Well, that's-
it gets sticky quick.
Because or
My
is
belly's
trolling its
nervous.
own thing, or is it its own element?
I mean,
Yeah, well, that would be the safe answer,
Yeah.
Phil. That would be the thing I would want to be able to say right now. Is like, of course, trolling is different, but I'm not sure it really truly is.
Yeah.
Even in the clowning, which is in innocence to display some sort of social awareness to what's going on. Right. That's how I use it.
Mm-hmm.
At least. That awareness of what's going on and being active in the face of it, I think, is an extremely important component to living in a society. So we're not doing these silly clown shows just for the sake of having silly fun.
Mm-hmm.
There's a point to them, as there is in all theater, right? And all art presents a truthful moment of the world that we respond to in an empathetic way, in an emotional empathetic way, that then we carry out with us to the world. And in the theater, that practice is driven by this concept of listening.
Okay.
And today in society, we're not listening to each other. We have an idea and it's right, and I don't care what the other side says.
Mm-hmm.
We've drawn lines. So what we've done is we've created barriers between us. And what we need to do is diminish those barriers. And the only way to do that is listening. And at the theater is a place to come and practice listening. You come into a darkened room, you share an imagined experience with the community around you. Your heart rates actually sync up. And it's been documented medically that when you are in a community and your heart rates sync up, everybody's a little healthier as a result of it. That's just a trippy thought, actually. But I try to focus on, and we at Coho try to focus on this idea of bringing your intelligence, your energy to respond to the play. But in order to do that, you have to be listening, both with your ears and your entire body. That's what makes theater so cool. It's visceral.
Yeah.
And so you listen viscerally, and you eventually create an empathetic connection to what's happening on stage. And then you bring that truth out into the world with you, because you've practiced this listening in a way that expands your ability to be empathetic. And then you engage in the world with that empathy, and suddenly we're breaking down walls instead of building walls. And it's simply the concept of listening. So we call that practice radical listening.
Sounds familiar.
It does.
So, and we can talk about it. So, you created this podcast, we created a brainchild podcast, which we are now on episode 4 of.
Yeah.
With the intention to
Wow.
help people participate in radical listening.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a lot of people who I get this all the time. What does radical listening mean? And you just explained it very eloquently. So how do we help people understand radical listening? How do we move more people towards, being open to come to
Sure.
theater and start to listen to perspectives that they are not theirs?
Right. I think the impulse for the podcast was to expand our audience base, extend the way we at Coho are reaching into the community to communicate what we're doing, in a way to start to build bridges beyond the normal Portland theater-going audience. There's like 4,000 people who go to the theater regularly. Mm-hmm. Cross your fingers that 1,000 of them come to one of Coho's plays.
Yeah.
And there are a lot more people in Portland. And there are a lot more people who are not the traditional going theater goers. There's this great music scene. There's this fantastic art scene that's going on. There are people of diverse ethnic and cultural backgrounds. They are not necessarily coming to to Coho.
Yeah.
We can see that.
Why do you think that is? What do you think happened to theater that the youth seem to overwhelmingly distance themselves from it?
I think there are several things. I think the obvious one is expense. But I think more importantly, the content that we present tends to appeal to white upper middle class folk who are older, because those are the people with disposable income who are used to who've created a life that's on a particular schedule. So when I was a kid, I would go to a music venue at 10 o'clock and I would drop my $5 to go listen to some music. If I showed up at 10:30, it was still worth it for me to drop my $5, right?
Right.
At the theater, the contract says you arrive at 7:30. If you're late, you can't get in.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one thing. The flexibility of it is part of the deal there. We've also, even small Coho here, 95-seat theater, we're institutionalized. We're a 501c3 not-for-profit with a season subscription model.
Yeah.
That doesn't appeal to the youth. People aren't going to, people 25 aren't going to drop, our season subscriptions are very inexpensive, by the way, $80 to $115. So it's not a lot of money.
You can't see a show on Broadway for that much money.
Right. One show, and you can get 4 pretty cool things, I've got to say. But that's a lot of money for somebody to drop to come, and especially when you're 25.
Yeah.
It's not a lot when you're on when you have a full salary and you're in your peak earning years at 50 and all that stuff.
Yeah, because I've been going to a lot more of these event parties that people are throwing and like, house music, that kind of stuff. And people will pay $25, people our age, but it does go all night. And then they'll spend more on drinks while they're there, but it's because people are there for more of an immersive, exciting event,
Right.
It's interesting.
And there's been talk about making sure that your play and your production that you're presenting feels like an event for folks. But that event that when we cultivate that, it's still for the middle-aged white upper middle class community. That's who goes to theater. That's how the institution, that's structurally how we're set up.
Yeah.
So we need to change the system in order to reach more people. So how do you change the system?
Yeah.
Holy crap, it's hard.
Yeah.
You start by changing your principles, and you make equity, in our case, a guiding principle for season selection. You make equity a guiding principle for hiring. You just make equity a component of it, so that you are providing opportunities to folk who may not be keen to what is really happening here.
So is that is that part of your driving force of what gets things into this building? Because Coho has a space, and that's what's really cool. And you have a different model of putting together a season and what happens in your space than a lot of other places. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm just curious about that, because it took me a long time to really understand what was happening at Coho.
Right.
And I knew people who were working here, and but I had a hard time telling what's the difference between what's in your season versus what comes here during the summer versus, Third Rail doing their shows here, or other people doing their shows here.
Right. The Third Rail is our main tenant these last couple of years. So let's talk about our model for a second, since Clifton's brought it up, because I think it's important. For our season, we request proposals from the community. We ask theater artists, local theater artists, what do you really want to do? What cool project do you have that you can bring to us? And they share in the producing duties. It's their project. It's their artistic vision. They have to have a financial stake in that. And so they have to fundraise a little bit for their vision. Coho will give them a lump sum of money and says, hey, do this play with that. And if they say, my vision needs more, then they have to go get it. The proposals are then selected by a committee, our artistic council. So it's not just my point of view. It's a group of us, and we try to come to consensus. In my 5 years of season selection, we've had to take a vote only once, and that was not because it was contentious. It was just we had 2 seasons we could have put together, and it was like everybody was happy with both of the seasons, and it was like, well, which one are we going to do?
Right.
And so we took a vote.
No coin flip?
No. Although that would have been just as much if we were but we have an odd number intentionally for that.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
But so the season is curated by this council. Then when I came on into my position, I was tasked with, quote, don't sweat the asset, meaning the space. If the space sits empty, it costs us money and it sweats money. So the idea was fill the darn thing. Don't let it not be, something has to be happening.
Yeah.
And we are in the business of creating programming. So my take on that was generate more programming, make sure we have enough sublet lease revenue to contribute to the bottom line, and that you're not solely reliant on ticket sales. When you generate programming, the revenue stream is ticket sales. When you sublease the room, it's just money.
Yeah.
And so the other thing that was really important when I first got started was making sure that everything that came in the room was chosen, even the sublease, to be really careful, because as the neighborhood has exploded, and you all have seen the neighborhood, it's hard
I've
to
been here
get
for
parking.
5 years, and it's completely different.
Completely
different.
Right. Remember when Conway was down the block and it was all parking lots, right? And now it's all condominiums.
Yeah.
How many? There's a little side step, but are you reaching a lot of those people? Do you think?
Most of those apartment buildings are empty.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, I'm not surprised one bit.
Bubbles bursting.
Well, I don't know about that.
Are they just not full yet? Do you think?
I don't know what the deal is. They're expensive. We have a housing crisis in this city, and there's all these apartments that are empty. That's obscene.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of reasons, real estate, which we don't want to get into because I know just enough to say something incorrect.
I got you. But it's also a case that a lot of theaters in town have lost their spaces because of these type of rent increases just for everybody, driven by this housing boom or housing crisis / overpriced housing boom.
But I would also say that regardless of whether or not these high rises are filled or not, this is a pretty active area.
Much more active since really the New Seasons moved in. And when New Seasons moved in, they put a light on our corner. And now at 5 o'clock, from that light all the way back to New Seasons, it's a line of cars. And they drive up and they look over and they see our beautiful sign.
Yeah,
that's right.
There's also a lot of foot traffic. Neighbors walking up to the grocery store down the block.
Your neighborhood's made it when they put a Pine State biscuits around the corner.
Around the corner.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pine State biscuits.
Yeah.
So and St. Jack's moved in. It's just a booming neighborhood. And yes, we've seen an increase of neighbors coming. The sign was a big deal. We put up the sign in 2016, 2017. there was one guy who came jogging in. He says, "I've jogged by this building for years and didn't know what it was," and he purchased a ticket.
Great.
So, and when anybody does come in, they don't know it's Third Rail. They don't know it's Coho Lab. They just think of it.
They're there to see something.
They're here to see something, and it is all the venue.
Yeah.
So
People don't really like, differentiate between the two things a lot of the time.
only those 4,000 local theater
goers,
goes
right.
who are in the know.
Yeah.
And while they make up, like, we need to be attentive to those people, right? I mean, all of this, we never want to forget the foundation of the organization, right? And it is our 250 subscribers and our really loyal patrons that are providing us the foundational funding to do an expansive and an extended programming.
It's a clever shout out.
It's true, though.
So do you notice that if there's a difference in taste between, say, your subscribers or your those 4,000 people and the types of people who you're trying to attract?
I love Coho Lab, and we had Coho Lab, the public performance, last night. So Coho Lab is a 2-week residency where we pick 3 or 4 projects, and those folks generate and devise material over those 2 weeks. They do a facilitated feedback session for their peers to get intellectual feedback, and then we do a public showing of a fragment of the work that they did over the 2 weeks. They don't have to show everything. In fact, they can't because we don't have enough time. And then get visceral feedback from the public. And it's fascinating because each of the project attracts different types of people. So we had 4 projects shown last night, and the people in the audience had a varied sensibility, right?
That was really interesting to see.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. You could tell that people were there for different pieces or, came to support a specific person, and then also ended up seeing 3 other things that were varied in nature and like content
and tone. And you can really feel when included in that group of folk were some serious Coho loyalists. Pam Tower was here. Carl and Linda Beckelheide. Linda is on our board. There are a few others as well who come to see everything that we do, and that last night was so varied.
Yeah.
And you can feel the Coho Lab, actually, the audience's hometown, that like they're there, as Clifton mentioned, to support a particular artist, and then they have to watch other things. But they're also, because they're there for their those folks they are supporting, they're also very gracious to the rest of us.
Yeah.
And a community, here we go again, kind of forms. And some of the stuff like Rose and Murray turning into iguanas in that really killer piece, Mundane Flights. The folks next to me were a family who were there to see the first piece, Melody Irfani's Bee, which is also, by the way, in Coho's season next spring. And were completely surprised, certainly by Frankenstein.
Were they the ones with the little child?
With the little child.
Yeah. There was plenty of,
Yeah.
Did you see the kid with the soccer ball in his lap who was sitting over there?
I saw him come in, but I didn't see
I
him.
was like across from him, so I was watching him. He was so bored most of the time, but then Murray started swearing, and he was like, oh.
Swearing.
Yeah, he's like, oh, cool.
What did he think of Frankenstein?
I can't remember. I was kind of watching him. I think he was kind of in and out of that one.
He would have been a he would have been, yeah.
Yeah, it was
He was a
interesting.
good age.
Yeah, he was like a
11.
surly 10-year-old or 11-year-old with a
Yeah.
soccer ball on his lap. Just
Like,
like
what am
you
I
know.
doing here,
Yeah,
Mom?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But you could see him perk up a few times. and that
Sunday
was
night
really cool.
baseball is on.
I was surprised that there were any children here.
Yeah.
For that, I was almost expecting. I was like, "Oh, kids!" I'm like, "Did someone do like a children's piece or something?" But no. Okay.
And it was, it was family.
And I thought the little girl was here for Rose. I was like, maybe like that's one of Rose's like little, because I knew she taught like
Oh,
preschool
geez.
or something,
No.
and like, but I didn't know what her piece was like, and I'm like, maybe it's Rose's piece and she did like a kids thing or something. I don't know. It was funny.
How did you get started at Coho?
Well, I gotta say, when I found out about Coho's mission back in 2000, I got to Portland in 2003, and like it came into my consciousness around 2007, 2008. I thought it was the coolest model going. As a theater maker, as somebody who kind of like had to do my own thing in order to do my thing. I was totally excited by it, and I proposed a couple of shows and didn't get in. And then in the 2012-2013 season, my wife and I, Maureen Porter, we petitioned for Crooked. And we got in and were the final show of the 2012-2013 season. And so I was involved in a year in which Coho went through a little bit of financial stress. And I'm accustomed to dealing with small nonprofit theater arts organizations under financial stress. And at the time, Mary Blair was on the board at Coho, and through her graciousness, she and her husband Don devised a plan to complete the season and potentially end Coho gracefully. And when I consulted with them, or they I was not happy about my play getting canceled, basically. And Mary was willing to take a meeting, and we talked about what it would cost, knowing the books, to end the year gracefully. And I had a number, and Don had a number, and Don's number was twice as much as mine. And so I said, if you add a third part to that, we could keep it going forever. And they needed to take some time because it was a lot of money. And they came back, and really through Mary's passion for the place and for theater in general, they agreed to add that piece. And we came up with a tight little 3-year plan to stabilize the finances of the organization. A big shout out goes to the Miller Foundation and the Oregon Community Foundation, because they funded my position for 3 years. The Miller leaned in first. The Oregon Community Foundation, which is their want, became the second funder. And then it was just a matter of when you have 3 years of funding, then it's just manage your books, okay? Like, take a peek, know what's coming 9 months ahead, know where the money's coming from, know what's going out, and don't overspend. Now, that's easier said than done.
It's like finances. Revenue problems.
Yeah. And so, there's a lot of hard work that goes into that all. I don't mean to say that's easy. There's a lot of pressure to spend more money, right? I wish we could spend $6,000 on Brothers Paranormal Scenic Design, and Kate Duffley, who's the director, would have a glorious amount of fun, right? So what we need to do, like in all art, is color inside the lines. Like, here are the parameters, here are the constraints, here are the restraints. And within the restraints, we bump up against them, and then we create something cool. Money sometimes makes that really easy. So you get the vision you have in your head on stage, but that kind of vision, save that for TV. Like for me, the constraints of live performance are such that something greater can come of the limitation. If we want to do something that is completely, truly representational, you got to put it on film, video, HD, however you're supposed to say it these days.
I heard, it's funny. I heard, I think this was NTV. I was working in TV when somebody said this to me, but they said big budgets ruin productions.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because the color and the lines thing, it's something that I was able to learn when I was in school. But I see a lot of creators in all different mediums who don't really understand it. It seems like the art is driven by the budget.
Yeah.
And it's very strange. I'd almost rather start with nothing and see what I can create with nothing than
Right.
trying to,
Right.
have a massive budget and spend gobs of money on spectacle. And
Right.
it's a very different type of creating.
Right. It is a different type of creating. It's institutionally, you need to start with the budget, right?
Yeah.
So the system again, right, demands a certain amount of that, and because we don't have a lot over here in this little 95-seat theater in our $400,000 a year budget, with a staff of 3.25 full-time employees comprised of 6 people.
Yeah.
We are more in the maker mentality, I like to think of it, which is what I would describe, Phil, what you had just said, starting with nothing, hand to mouth. There's a theater company in town, literally, that works hand to mouth, and that's their name. Theater of the Poor. Or Poor Theater, I think it is.
It's like
Poor
Gutowski
theater.
people, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and Poor Theater. So it's intended to be, like Rose and Murray's piece last night. Rose's piece. Joel Dunham directed it, by the way. Mundane Flights was just 2 people on a blank stage, and they created a world of a party, and just
Very true. Yeah.
really beautifully done. Wonderfully staged by Joel. And when we were teching, actually, I was like, oh my God, there's a million light cues for this 15-minute piece. I'm like, Joel, you're going to have to, we were dry teching, when we get the actors out here, you're going to have to be ready to cut some of these cues. And he's like, he gave me this, like, his back got up and he got straight. And he's like, well, we'll have to cut pieces then. I'm like, Joel, just consider it. Just consider it. And then when we got into tech, it was like, oh,
Yeah.
no, this was exactly the right number.
There's no set or like anything else. It's the light cues that
Shaped
delineates everything, and it looked clean.
And it was clean as
Made everything super clear.
It did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
well done, Joel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this type of theater making, okay, so you said you were used to working for theater organizations with financial trouble.
Yeah.
And so my question is, where and how did you come about?
Every theater company that I've ever worked with is in financial trouble.
I've heard that that's the secret.
Well,
how did you get started? And
yeah,
where'd you come from?
in admin, I got started at Portland Actors Conservatory. When I was young, I wanted to play Romeo.
Yeah,
but
it always starts with something like that.
Yeah, and if
Look at
I
us.
have the heart of a poet, I
Yeah.
really do, a romantic, but I have the limber body and the face and the tradition in me of clown, of the commedia, and I actually got cast at Hartford Center Stage in a project, a Romeo and Juliet project, as a supplemental extra, as a townsperson. I got hired to do the big fight, at the beginning, and I was called with only 7 people. The fight had like 25 people in it, with only 7 people, and it was all the big fellas, and they were all getting broadswords, and it's like, cool. And he gave out Chuck Conwell, he was the fight guy. He gave out these 6 broadswords, and he's like, none for me. And I kind of like waited. I didn't get anything. He choreographed this gorgeous fight. These 3 duets.
Like 3 on 3, or
2 on
yeah.
3 of them. around a fountain.
Yeah.
40 moves for this group, and you break off that way, you break off that way. 35 moves for this group, you break off that way, you break off that way. 26 moves for this group, you break off that way, you break off that way. And I was, why the fuck am I called to this fight call, right? I'm not doing anything. So he finishes with all of that, a couple hours, and he comes over to me with a basket, a backpack basket of 3-foot lengths of sausage. And then I beat the crap out of all 6 of those broadswordsmen with my sausage.
That's great.
Totally great. This idea from Chuck was brilliant because it was silly enough and there was enough going on. Anyway, the 6 fellows, there's one in particular who said something like, "Wow, you just got really big." And the director, Mark Lamos, very famous director, saw it, and he started referencing me as the clown. And whenever he needed a little bit of color across the stage or something, a little like town vibe, he would stage it with these extras, which I was one of. And excuse me. And when Mark wanted something a little bit more textured, he would call over the God mic, "Get that clown out here. Get that clown out here." And I went back to New York and I took a clown workshop with the Cirque du Soleil clown, David Shiner. And I never stopped working. As soon as I identified myself as a clown, I was no longer submitting myself for roles that other people weren't seeing me as. The work with Shiner was over a long period of time, and it was very rich, and I generated a ton of characters, and I ended up in Florida working on the streets of theme parks. And then in Florida, I stumbled into a company called School is Fun Productions, and I devised one-man character-driven curriculum-based interactive theater for schools, and they were clown characters.
Yeah.
And for 3 years, I was on tour by myself, doing my 10,000 hours in these 4 shows over and over and over and over again, and kind of a second grade is going to let you know if you're funny or not
Yeah.
in a hurry. And I learned an enormous amount from that. I headed back to New York when I met Maureen, and there I had met before I left New York, when I just started the clowning, Jerry Mawad, who runs Imago Mask and Movement Theater here. And then when I met Maureen, she said she was from Portland, and I started to get serious, and she said, "There are only 2 places in the world I'll live, New York City or home." And home was Portland. I'm like, let's go to Portland. I'm going to work with that Imago Mask and Movement Theater. And in fact, they were the first people to hire me.
Oh, wow.
It was physically demanding, mask and movement stuff. And when I started there, and this is how the story goes, the next oldest person in the I was 39. The next oldest person in the company was 26. And 3 years later, when I ended my contract, the next oldest person in the company was 26 that I was working with. So it was a young person. It felt like a young person's game. That's not fair. There were a couple other guys who hung around a little bit, but they weren't in my inner core group that I was working with. My knees ached for 18 months at the back end of those 36 months, and I shifted into expending energy, wanting to be a director. Jose Gonzalez and Olga Sanchez at Miracle Theater, Milagro Theater, hired me to do one of the Dios de los Muertos. I ended up doing 3 years of that. When we first got to Portland, I was hired by Beth Harper at the Portland Actors Conservatory to do movement for actors. That grew into my clown class. And just when I was leaving Imago, Beth needed help in project managing an accreditation project. And now Portland Actors Conservatory is accredited by the National Association of Schools of Theater. I started as a volunteer, but eventually she went out and found the money to get me in as a project manager, then eventually as associate director, and then there was money, and I became the executive director at PAC. And PAC is serially underfunded, and so part of accreditation was overseeing 3 years of financial audits. So one financial audit is a big deal, but 3 years of it is a lot. And I had a very generous CPA working with me who basically taught me cost accounting for nonprofit theater, which gave me an enormous infrastructure from which I then became or I've become, if I'm helpful to other companies when they have a little bit of trouble. So
Yeah, it's really an underrated skill, is accounting and understanding finances, especially when it comes to art.
right, and I think understanding finance is better phrased than accounting. Like accounting is keeping books and record keeping, and finance is something a little bit different. Finance is understanding the value of something and being able to identify the money that's related to that value. So when we speak about radical listening, that value goes way beyond the $25 ticket, right? But we need to monetize the participation of our community so that we can further this mission. I was born Catholic, and I remain a non-practicing Catholic with some serious cynicism.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how does that work?
Well, I do believe in this. Well, if we can go here.
We've already gone there.
All right,
brought it up.
it's going to get worse. I believe in the Trinity: the Spirit, the power, and the human. Right?
Okay.
So, the Catholics: Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. The Son being people, human. The Father being the power, and the Spirit being that sort of infinite.
Almost a connection between the two.
No, they're all one.
Well,
They're
yes.
all one and they're not each other.
And
Yes.
I am not trying to deny that, because let me tell you, don't ever tell a Christian.
Anyway, and so I tend to see that in everything, right? That notion that there's a higher authority that's connected energetically, and that we are part of something. We each as an individual are part of a community. We are practicing right now as a community, which is the basic tenet of radical listening. Come together in a room to practice to listen, then go forth in my name, not in my name, not in Philip's name,
You're right.
No.
in the name of empathy, and share that with each other, and we have a better world. And it's basic Christ teaching. It's basic Confucius teaching. It's basic Mohammed. Although I don't know those that well, so I'm speaking kind of inappropriately in a way. But there's my Catholicism. That's present, and
So you're a Marianne supporter. I'm just joking.
well, I don't know quite enough about Marianne, but what I've heard seems like she's not practical enough. Okay, so you gotta bring it down to what is practical.
Yeah.
And what really what is actionable.
Yeah.
Which is why I think I'm leaning to anybody.
Yeah. Well, I guess so then if there's a spirit, what is the spirit of theater? The spirit of theater is empathy.
Well, the empathy is the result in the human. It's the space that lives and breathes between the energy that lives and breathes between the production and the audience. Right? We come together, and suddenly the audience leans in all together.
It's whatever's making our hearts beat at the same time.
Exactly. Exactly. it's Pentecostal.
True, it's true. I've always felt that theater is almost kind of it's almost a religion in itself,
Right.
You know?
And like you're saying, it does model a lot of the Christian tradition, going to church almost.
Almost.
Yeah.
Almost. It's an agreed upon time.
Mm-hmm.
Here the services are 4 times a week here at Coho, Thursday through Sunday.
Get some wine.
You only have to come
Get
once.
some
though.
wine, right?
Yeah.
You only have to come once a week, or in our case, once a month,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Well, you know, I think what's interesting about church, as far as attracting members, right, is that they have this kind of freemium model, right, where anyone could walk into a church at any time and feel accepted, but also can sit and decide whether or not that this is for them.
Right.
And then, you know, you become a subscriber after so much time. Do you think anything like that could ever work in theater?
Well, that's the basic tenet of our idea of extending ourselves, right? So instead of just simply taking care of our loyalists, we are pushing the envelope in our programming over the summer. We're including different kinds of voices in our upcoming season, in the hopes of demonstrating and continuing and staying with this ultimate idea of inclusion, which includes levels of equity, but also includes a humbling of our like standard, like what is good theater? You know, is it actors who can enunciate well and move through the text and commit to action? Is that what makes theater good, or is theater the relationship between the production and the audience? So we go back to last night at Coho Lab. That audience, in many times, in different tones, different styles, came together and viewed what was occurring all from the same point of view and perspective. This disparate group of people came together and shared an experience, and they were gracious and open to it. And so committing to that openness to what is possible, for me, defines what good theater will be. And it's a shift for me a bit, away from well-acted, well-written, the well-made play. Let's get away from that. Let's make a sloppy play that moves people. You know, let's not watch the same 15 to 20 actors do their best to make a mediocre script good and say, yeah, that's good theater, right? Let's see different people. Let's see them struggle to make the moments happen. And let's keep our eyes attentive for those moments that are magic, that aren't driven by simply facility and skill, but are driven by truth, by authentic connection to the moments that are occurring, that are magic. And let's call that good theater.
Amen.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I just wanted to take a second to talk about our show sponsors. Coho is a theater that's located in Northwest Portland, and their mission is to broaden perspectives and cultivate empathy through vibrant and intimate productions. If you're looking to get involved with Coho or interested in seeing a show, you can check them out at 2257 Northwest Raleigh Street in Portland, Oregon, or you can look at their website, which is cohoproductions.org. Our other show sponsor is virtualsonicreality.com, which is a production company that specializes in recording and audio format entertainment, such as podcasts and audio dramas. Feel free to visit the website at virtualsonicreality.com. And now back to the show. Great. So let's move on to some of our headlines.
Some of our headlines.
I think we
found some good ones.
We've got some headlines for you. And again, headlines are just general things that are going on in the world. We scan through the web to find topical.
Dig through Reddit.
Yeah.
Peek through the Mercury.
And
see what's up.
We just want to get your point of view, get your hot take on some of these ideas.
So don't think about it too much.
I want.
Here's something that's interesting. That is kind of a new idea, right? You've heard about tiny houses, correct?
Yeah.
So now you can buy a prefab solar-powered tiny house for $24,000 on Amazon, and that's from CNET.
And you can like put it together in like 2 days or something. It comes
Yes,
to you and it's like,
you can assemble it in 2 days. So the idea that you can buy a house on Amazon Prime, how does that make you feel?
where do you have it delivered to?
Yeah. Well, my backyard
good
would be
question.
nice.
Yeah.
I have a pretty empty backyard right now, and we've been talking about putting in a studio back there.
Oh, that's great.
You know, and so tiny house is kind of like.
Yeah.
Although the tiny houses I've been in, they're too tiny.
I'm sorry, you're a clown. So aren't you supposed to be able to
Small cars.
fit a
I
lot of things?
need room. Well, I have a particular thing in mind. I want a space that could double as a studio for rehearsals, and then also we could put in visiting artists who could stay there, and then when downtime is, Airbnb it. Right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of functionality.
Yeah.
And there is the admin artist speaking, right? Everything has to be practical.
Yes.
Everything's got to be like multi-use.
What's your sign?
I'm Scorpio.
Okay.
Ooh.
All right.
Yeah.
Did everybody hear that?
Do you know Michael O'Neill at all?
Yeah,
Do you know what he's got? He's been over to the art barn.
I have.
It's pretty cool. He's got
It
his
is
little
cool.
tiny
He
house
has his
back
tiny
there,
house
and
back there,
I don't know,
yeah.
I just went to a couple of shows there recently.
Yeah,
I'm digging
yeah.
that space.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just funny that you can buy a house on Amazon.
Yes.
I've
Well,
been-
buying a house on Amazon is strange. Buying anything on Amazon, actually, if you really think about it, is a little strange. I mean, the marketplace
Yeah.
has been the center of communities
Yeah.
forever.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
suddenly the marketplace is online, and we are more and more apart from each other.
Yeah.
And which is more reason why we need theater.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. All right, here's one. This is something to do with theater.
The sly smile.
So, Portland 5 didn't cancel on Saturday. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Right.
It's a touring production, yes, or is it just there? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. So.
But the headline reads:
Oh.
Portland 5 Center for the Arts isn't canceling its Charlie and the Chocolate Factory show during Saturday's planned protests. One parent wants her money back,
Wow.
and that's Willamette.
Wow. Good for P5.
Yeah, scruples, right?
Why give in to the monster? Let's live our lives bravely, forwardly, with courage.
Yeah.
Shame on that mother.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. That's what I wanted to hear.
Nice. Yes.
Because theater is more important. And these people, and it's like you let hate win. There's so many different
You
ways
let
you can
hate
let
win,
you
right?
can let hate win.
Yeah, and you got to say the Proud Boys are theater, man.
Oh.
They're all about. I mean, the whole. Ugh.
It's I have this whole thing about people who are really self-important.
Yeah.
And they are a representation of that. And then you know what? And to some extent, so is Antifa.
Yeah.
It's just these are
Well-
people who are posing for the internet. It's this world stage, and they all just want people to see them.
Yes. Don't we all?
Well, in theater at least, it's like we have a I don't know.
We have a medium.
Yeah.
But we all want to be seen.
Yeah.
So I'm not excusing them by any stretch of the imagination. If you want to be seen for hate, then that's shameful.
Yeah.
That's just how you it must be a very unhappy life.
No.
To live with so much hate and to espouse it all the time. It just sort of creates around you ugliness.
Yeah, and I'm starting to realize more and more that this the Proud Boys and all these guys, their hate has become their religion.
Yeah.
And it's almost like just like how certain types of religious people are, where you start denying certain facts, and you start to get really narrow about what types of input you take and all
Right.
of that. They're doing the exact same thing.
And
They'll
they're
do a lot to find community. And
Yeah.
it
yeah,
can
but
go
find
wrong in a bad
find
way. Yeah.
community in one of the
Yeah.
circles of hell.
Yeah.
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 You know, it's like, is that what is really that's your choice? I mean, are things so bad that that's the place you have to find community?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and last headline for this week or this episode. So this is from Reddit.
Yeah.
So the idea is, what have you heard in your apartment through the walls? That's basically what the name of the caption was. What have you heard in your apartment through the walls?
Well, I don't live in an apartment anymore.
But
in
this
your
is over the
time,
course
we're
of your
talking
life,
lifetime.
like,
I know you've lived. Some
What's the
pretty
worst
crazy
thing you've
places.
heard? And you know what? Let's just say
Worst
sex is
thing.
easy.
Yeah, no, I wasn't even going to go there. The thing that comes up is the trumpet player
Oh.
who is really accomplished, but was accomplished because she practiced scales
Mm-hmm.
over and over and over again, over and over and over again.
Oh, that must have been great.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, and at the time, Maureen was working a job in the Wall Street area, and we finally convinced her to practice the scales at a particular time after Maureen had left, and then I would just make sure I was out of the apartment during that
Gracious of you.
time.
Was she
Well,
right next door?
Underneath us.
Underneath this.
Oh.
Mm.
It's interesting. I just I came upon a saxophone, so you know.
Yeah.
Maybe
And I
I'll
came
be the-
upon a clarinet. and
We're
so
just-
now
we're
it's gonna
starting a
get
jazz
real
band,
messy.
so.
And Tev's gonna play trumpet.
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
He doesn't know yet.
Jeez.
Yeah, so neighbors, watch out.
Yeah.
Just beware.
Great. Let's do plugs.
Yeah.
So this is the part of the show where you can plug anything, and you can just tell us why.
Well, I
you're
got to
doing it.
start with Mala by Melinda Lopez.
Okay.
Ulana Torres is in a one-person show right here in the Coho space, opening September 6th. Ulana's ferocious. The piece is funny and poignant and a wild ride, and she's a fierce performer, and that's going to happen September 6th. It kicks off our season. We have a really cool season, actually, so we're plugging. Mala is followed by the Brothers Paranormal, which
Great.
is a co-production with Media Rights, Theater Diaspora. It's a Thai Gothic horror story.
Sounds so cool.
Yeah. Set the year after the Hurricane Katrina hit in New Orleans. A true phenomenon that there have been Thai ghosts appearing in displaced places. There's reports on it. And it's the piece ultimately is about finding your place and your community. It's a really smart piece that is going to be scary. Kate Tuffley is directing. Samson Surath is the lead in it. Andrea White is in the cast. She plays a really important role. I'm really excited to have Andrea back on the stage. Last time we had Andrea here in a staged reading, I played opposite her. It was super fun. Our third piece is by a local fella, went to read, Dominic Finocchiaro. It's The Found Dog Ribbon Dance. Oh my God, and Clifton is in it.
Oh, that's
I
right.
forgot.
I forgot too. Whoa. Yeah.
Clifton plays dog.
I've got lots of lines.
It's great. And we end the season with B, which was workshopped for the interstitial components during Coho Lab.
Right.
It's this beautiful tone poem about Iran in the late 1940s, and a lineage piece in regards to Melody herself, who is the granddaughter of this woman who we follow her life as a woman married in Iran in the 1940s. And there's some beautiful, beautiful stuff in that play, and I'm really excited about it. Yeah, I don't want to give anything away
Yeah.
because I'm really excited about it. And I was really happy to see the work that Melody did with some actors over these 2 weeks. She's fairly new to Portland. She's workshopped this play a couple of times in New York, including at HB Studios, and the text is exquisite, and the poignancy is like it is so delicate, and I'm looking forward to her putting together a full cast, and she's going to bring in an actor from New York who's worked with her before, who will play the lead, and so there's our season.
Ah, sounds fun.
Yeah, Recover and Rebuild, we're calling it.
Recover and
$80,
rebuild.
you can see the whole thing.
80, well, if you're over 65.
Oh.
115 if you're a little younger.
Still a deal.
Is there a student discount?
There is a student discount. And we do this super cool thing for high school students, rush tickets for free.
Oh, nice.
And it's easy to kind of call ahead, and we can let you know that, yeah, you're going to get in.
Okay.
So if you're a high school student, come to Coho for free.
Great.
Bring your friends.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
You have any plugs?
Yeah. So, Found Dog Ribbon Dance is coming up, and Conray's directing that. I'm also doing another show Conray's directing at Theater Vertigo, and we open in September. Sorry.
Is that
late September.
Is that a Dominic piece too?
No, it's Complex.
That's Dominic.
Oh, is it
Same
also
author,
Dominic?
yeah.
Oh, didn't realize. Well, there you go. That shows how much I know about what I'm working on. But I'm really excited about it. Getting to showcase some of my talents beyond acting and that, get to make some strange sounds. Very excited. Also, going to Burning Man and Shebang soon. So those will be some fun festivals, and might be doing a little performance there, putting some eggs in some bottles, some science stuff. We'll see. So if you're at Burning Man, or the week after that, Shebang up in at the Lookout Arts Quarry in Washington, I'll be hanging out there. So yeah.
Great. I'm going to shout out From the Ruby Jewel, which is going to be happening at the Shoebox starting August 23rd. And I think it runs through September 8th. And that is a play that I worked on in development the last time it was produced. I'm not working on it this time, but I still want to shout them out. And it's about, it takes place surrounding these women who work in a strip club, and it talks about, the life of people who are in sex work. It's very interesting. And that's all. So thank you very much for...
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Clifton.
Yeah, thank you, Phil.
Fun,
thank you,
wasn't
Phil. I wanted to say that.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Radical Listening. If you have questions or would like to reach out, feel free to reach out to our email, which is radicallisteningpodcast@gmail.com, or visit the Coho Theater website for more information. And thanks for listening.